It was always pretty obvious that there were some really shady things going on in the Gosselin family from John and Kate plus 8. And now that Kate's estranged kids have turned 18, some of them are opening up about everything that went on and why they're no longer talking to their mom. And all the things they've said so far will leave you speechless. Out of the 8 Gosselin kids, it's Colin and Hannah that don't live with their mom anymore. It's been over 5 years now since they both started living with their dad, but we've never actually heard their side of the story. I mean, it's obvious that something weird was going on behind the scenes, especially after Kate put Colin into an institution. And the way he got out was actually his dad getting custody and pulling him out of there. But now that both Colin and Hannah have spoken out, we finally know a little more about the situation. The interesting thing is that although both Hannah and Colin live with their dad, they're actually not on the same terms with their mom. While Colin doesn't speak to her at all, Hannah is actually in contact with Kate, and the two of them also have different stories of how they came to live with their dad. While for Colin, it's obviously the whole story with the institution, Hannah actually just decided to go live with her dad on her own. She was also the first one there. Colin actually joined them later, and Hannah also revealed the reason she decided to go live with her dad in the first place. According to her, there was some unfair treatment going on in Kate's household after she and John split. Hannah didn't actually go into much detail about it, but she did confirm that it was mostly Colin who was dealing with the biggest chunk of that unfairness. We don't actually know specifically what that looked like, but you could probably get the general idea from what happened on the show. But the final result of whatever was going on was obviously that Kate ended up putting Colin in the institution. At the time, she said that it was because he had special needs and she just couldn't take care of him. But Colin actually says that that's not true at all. It really just seems like Kate just didn't know how to take care of Colin, so she decided to put him in the institution, which is just not at all what you do. Even if you have a kid that's difficult to take care of, or you don't really know how to take care of them, you don't just put them in an institution to be done with it. I mean, she had 8 kids to take care of, and that obviously was just a lot to deal with. But at the same time, it's not like she was taking any steps to make it easier for herself. When she and John got divorced, they actually shared custody of all 8 of their kids. But according to John, there was never a time when all 8 of them were at his place at the same time. And one by one, they just stopped coming over altogether. And when Colin was the one who stopped coming, John thought that he just didn't want to come anymore like his other siblings. But then he found out that Colin actually didn't come over because he was in an institution. Supposedly, Kate just didn't let him know about that at all. And then she even refused to tell him where Colin was at. So Kate was seemingly putting on a whole pretty facade about how she had to put her son into an institution for his own good. But she probably didn't care about him that much. And something that Colin actually opened up about in his interview was his time in the institution. And it was obvious that that time in his life was really difficult for him. He said that he was mentally in a really bad place while he was there. And the only thing that was keeping him sane was that he had hoped that things could get better. Eventually, he figured out that he could actually write to his dad. So he wrote a letter asking John to get him out of the institution. And from the letter, it was really obvious that he was desperate for help. But it still took a while for John to finally get custody of him and get him out. And Kate apparently didn't even show up to the custody hearing. She actually requested for the hearing to be postponed, but her request wasn't approved. And because she wasn't there, it was actually easy work for the judge. Since Colin agreed that John should get full custody of him, they just gave the custody over. And that's when Colin's time in the institution finally came to an end. And another thing that came to an end that day was his relationship with his mom. He actually said in the interview that he just doesn't have a relationship with her now. And unfortunately, things are the same when it comes to his other siblings. He's not in contact with any of them either, except for Hannah, obviously, since the two of them both live with their dad. But he's apparently not been in contact with his other siblings in years. And it was obvious he was way more upset about that than not being in contact with his mom. He actually had to take a break at one point to collect himself while he was talking about this. But then he said that he would actually love to have a relationship with his siblings. He and Hannah are 2 of the Gosselin sextuplets. So it's wild to think they just haven't spoken in that long. But the interesting thing is that Hannah actually is in contact with her other siblings, as well as with Kate. So you just have to wonder, why is nobody talking to Colin? Obviously, we can really just speculate here. But it kind of looks like Kate might actually be the one sort of turning the other kids against him. The thing is, she already allegedly did that with their relationship with their dad. Because after the divorce, the kids were initially spending time with him, but they were still mostly living at their mom's place. But over time, they just stopped coming altogether. And it's pretty obvious how that kind of thing happens. Of course, it's possible that Kate actually had nothing to do with it, and the kids just cut ties because they didn't really want to visit their dad. But it's just kind of weird that the same thing then happened with Colin too. But he at least has one sibling that he's on really good terms with, and that's obviously Hannah. He actually said that she's been really important to him since he got out of the institution. His time there unfortunately wasn't without consequences for him. He spent 3 difficult years there, and he obviously came back with some emotional scars. Colin apparently thinks that his parents' divorce was actually caused by the show. He said that in his opinion, if they hadn't done the show, his parents would have never gotten divorced. He also said that he wished they could have worked it out somehow and were still together now. And this is actually something he and Hannah agree on. She said the same thing in her interview, even though it was a separate one from Colin's. That's pretty interesting, since I would have expected Colin to be pretty mad at Kate. After all, she's the one who put him in an institution and made him go through the hardest years of his life for no reason. So I would expect him to just be done with Kate now. But then again, maybe it's just him and Hannah wanting to have their family back together. It's actually super understandable that they would want that, but at least they're with their dad now and definitely in better hands than they were with Kate. But anyway, what do you guys think? Which Gosselin parent do you side with, John or Kate? And what do you think about Colin not having a relationship with Kate and most of his siblings at all? Let me know in the comments below.